This is Robert with Pioneer Smokehouses, and today we're going to be smoking beef bacon in the Big Chief electric smoker. Now this is my first model of smoker that I ever used. When I was a kid, we used to use the Little Chief to smoke assorted fish items like rainbow trout and smelt on a regular basis. And that's how I kind of learned how to cure fish, give them seasoning, and then kind of refined it from there. I had even at one point have modified one to take it with me to go camping and run on a propane power source, which was great because I could catch fish fresh and then have them smoked the next day for dinner. So in today's video, we're gonna cure some bacon and we're using beef instead of pork. Now this same recipe works great for bacon, and I took it and I will link the article that I wrote down below in the description for the pork bacon recipe, but you can easily substitute out a piece of brisket flat. So let's go ahead and head into the kitchen and get that cure ready. This is from 5 days ago when we cured the beef brisket flat to get the process going. So let's go ahead and head in. First thing that I've done is the other day I did a brisket, and when I did the brisket, I cut off part of the flat. This piece here is right around 4 pounds. The recipe that we have calls for 5 pounds, so we'll probably have a little bit of seasoning left over. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the seasoning with you. So let's grab our recipe, and you'll find a link to the recipe in the description below on the website. And this is for bacon for pork belly, but it works perfectly fine for beef. So we're going to start here with a 1/4 cup of kosher salt. And then I want to show you this. And this is pink salt, or Prague powder number 1, which is sodium nitrate. Now, the reason that they dye it pink is so that way you don't accidentally mistake it for table salt, because if you ingest that, it'll make you really sick. When we're done curing it, we'll rinse that off, and then we might add just a little bit more of these same seasonings as a light coating on top. And I'll, when I mix this, I'll separate a little bit out and store it until we're done. The next thing we have, smoked paprika. Okay, that was 2 tablespoons, or 2 teaspoons of the sodium nitrate, or Prague powder number 1. This is 3 tablespoons of smoked paprika. Then we have a tablespoon of garlic. The recipe calls for garlic powder, and I really don't use garlic powder much. So this is granulated garlic, but it isn't real coarse. It's kind of a medium granule. And then we have a teaspoon of cumin powder. I call that the chili spice. It has that little chili flavor without being hot. And then we have coarse ground black pepper. The recipe calls for black peppercorns. And if you have a mill or whatever, you can do that. I do have peppercorns, but I don't have a mill, so it's a hand process, or I have to put it in the mortar and pestle, and that's a lot of work. Then we have dark brown sugar, and that's a 1/4 cup. Again, that recipe will be on the website in the article for bacon. Now, I'm going to take all this, and let's just move this out of our way. And other than the pink salt, I'm going to transfer it all to this bowl. And then I'm going to give it a little mix with a whisk. We're all done mixing this, and I set aside about a 1/4 cup of this mixture. That's just barely going to be enough to coat the outside when we're done curing it. Now, I'll throw in the pink salt. And again, don't go over on the pink salt. Go a little under. You just need enough for it to give it that full cure. So here we have our brisket flat, and you can see that there's a nice big fat cap on there. Now, the store or butcher will usually trim your fat just a little bit, but then the rest of it will be on there. On a regular brisket, I would trim that off. But on a bacon, I'm not going to be doing that. So when I put this on here, I'm going to sprinkle it on lightly. And then I'm going to kind of rub it in a little bit. And then I'll flip it and repeat. And when I go to do the sides, this is a real interesting little trick. I'll knock off the free stuff, and then I'll just run this across it like that and pick it up. And then you'll see that the sides are well covered. So let's go ahead and do more on the top here. If this is not really cold, the fat will be really soft and mushy. And when you grab onto it, it's really easy to put your thumb all the way through the fat. So you want to be careful to avoid that. Now it's covered completely, and now I'm going to knock some off. And then I'm going to run that in there just like I did with the other side. And then there's a little bit more that I could do on this side here too. Now I'm going to check the ends. I'm going to say that this end is not going to get enough. So I'm going to take that. Oh, that's looking good. I'm going to show that to you. And I'm going to put the rest of it on there. I'm never concerned about overdoing the edges. I learned a long time ago that if you overdo the edges when you take a bite of whatever meat it is, that it'll just be overbearing on the flavoring. So while you still want to season the edge, you really want to make sure that you get the large surfaces best. The next thing we have to do is we have to put it in the refrigerator to cure. You could use a glass dish and just set it in there and then turn it maybe once or twice a day. Another thing that you could do is you could use a 1 gallon Ziploc bag like what we did. Now this one was really tight to get in this 1 gallon, so if you have 2 gallon Ziploc bags, that's even better. But what I normally do is I normally use a vacuum seal bag. I'll just place this inside the bag. Most vacuum seal bags have a rough side, so that way the air can move around. And I want to put the fat side down just because it'll take those dimples, and then when I cook the fat, it'll shrink and you'll never notice the dimples in the final product. No, no like aesthetic reason or anything like that. It's only for a visual appearance. I'm going to go ahead and vacuum seal that, and then I'm going to throw it in the fridge. I'm going to turn that bag twice a day for the next 5 days. Now I could do it longer, or if I wanted to, I could go shorter, but I really don't recommend that because you want the cure to work 100%. So I'll go ahead and do that, and it'll be 5 days for me, but for you, I'll see you in a couple of seconds. It has been 6 days, and we are back. And this is what we have. So I'll show you this, and if it doesn't come out good on the camera, then I'll go ahead and take a picture and pop it up in the corner here. So everything is nice and sealed in, and I don't know if you can see this, but the liquid is moving freely around the edges of the bag. I flipped it frequently, and also something else that I did was I kind of worked it in a little bit so that way it didn't just sit. I want to make sure that the liquid had a chance to move around. Now, this should be shelf stable right now because it's completely cured. At this point, we leave it in the refrigerator. That's when I say shelf stable, that's what I really mean, but it's cure cooked. So what we're going to do next is I'm just going to open it up and then I'm going to rinse it. So I'll go ahead and do this, and then we'll switch the camera around. Now you can either use a large bowl or dish pan or even a regular pan. But what I did today is I just threw one of my smaller smoker racks in the bottom of my sink because I don't want it sitting on the bottom of my sink. I have this thing about the sink being one of the dirtiest places in the house, and so I just want to make sure. And then I'm just going to dump that and then throw this in the garbage can right behind the camera. We'll go ahead and get a close-up here. So hopefully this is turning out well so you can see it good. I'm going to set the sink on cold and take this down here and give it a real good rinse. We'll just fast forward this along. Now that it's all rinsed off, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dry it well. Now, if you remember, I took and I reserved some of our spice mix, and here's what we have. Now, you could add a little bit to that, and I would not hesitate to add a little brown sugar or even a little pepper. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that it's mixed well, and I'm just going to sprinkle it on there. I don't want to change much of what we're doing. And if you remember, there's no sodium nitrate in this mix. And look at that, it's all covered the way I want it, and that's just about all gone, so I'll just go ahead and throw that on there. It's ready to go on the smoker. I have a smoker grate and I have a grill mat, and I'm going to set that on there and let it rest for a few minutes. All right, we're good to go, so let's head out to the smoker. Now that our bacon is ready to go in the smoker, the next thing we need to do is prepare it. I've already plugged the smoker in and preheated it. Now, in the recipe, it calls for a temperature just slightly above 200 degrees. So this smoker is not temperature adjustable. So it runs at 165 degrees, which is just fine for bacon. Just make sure that you don't go under in time, because you want to make sure that you get all that yummy smoke flavor in there. Now, this smoker is not very old. It is cured, but it is not well cured, or seasoned, as we'd say. So first thing, let's go ahead and take a look at this. I'll move this over a little closer so you can get a better look. This is our rack that goes inside of the top load smoker. Now, the little chief, which you might not be able to see behind here, is a front load, and I like the way this one seals better. And you just drop the thing in and you put the lid on, and it works, and it has good airflow. Now, on the bottom here, you have a drip tray that covers the pan. It also does something else. It helps the smoke spread out evenly around the smoker, and I really like how it does that and distributes it real nice and even. If you don't have something like that above your smoke thing, I recommend that you either throw a cookie sheet in your smoker, no matter what model it is, or you use a piece of tinfoil. This is a pop-up tinfoil, and these are pre-cut to a size. But the reason I use these is to keep the mess down. So I make a little tray out of them, and you can do this just by folding it like this, or you can wrap it around the bottom of a box or a pan that this fits over conveniently. So like a small cake pan will work really well. And then you just slide it up in here, get it in there, make sure that all the sides are facing up. And then after you're done smoking, once it's cool, you just pick that thing and throw it straight in the garbage. And I find it really useful when smoking salmon, because a lot of oil comes off and drops into the smoker, and this keeps your mess down, and then your cleaning is a lot simpler. So as you saw in the last video, we placed the brisket flat or beef bacon on a tray and with a grill mat. Now the grill mat just makes everything so much easier to deal with. You can slide it around and move it and things like that. So we'll place this on here. Now I want to get the best temperature I can, so I want to go as high as I can without hitting the rack. So that'll be right there with this one. If it were thinner, like if it were fish, we could go all the way to the top. But usually on the fish, the only thing I put all the way on the top is the really thick pieces, because that's where it's hottest in this smoker. And if you want to do a test on that, put in all the racks, put in some biscuits, a couple on each shelf, and then let them cook until the biscuits start burning. Once the biscuits start burning, then pull it back out and you can examine it, and you can see where the hot and cold spots are by which biscuits are undercooked and which biscuits are overcooked. And you get a couple of perfect biscuits, you can make some gravy, and that's always great. Now, we're going to go ahead and open this up. I took a picture earlier before I started the smoker of the inside, and I'll put that up there. And when you look down in it, what you see is the element. that's also just inside this little door here. And I don't know if you can see that element, but it's sitting right there. So I'll set this aside. And then what we'll do is we'll lift this up. Now I want to point out something right here before I put this in, is that these feet come down right in the corners and touch the surface below. Not only do you not want this on a meltable surface like a resin table or plastic surface, but you also don't want it on a burnable surface like wood. I made some modifications to one of my previous ones, and it got hot enough down below that it started to literally smoke a little bit, and that was a bad sign. I don't think without the modifications that it would have done that. However, I just don't put it on a surface that's flammable. You can do it in your driveway, you can do it on your sidewalk, or in your any hard surface. In this case, I'm doing it on some yard bricks and my metal tray table. So now I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to make sure everything is how I want it to be. Get this directly underneath it. And then I'm going to set these feet inside and slowly lower it down. I don't recommend that you lift this up this high for normal everyday use. I would keep it down near the ground, probably on some of the cinder blocks like I have back here holding up my smoker shelf over there. And those are just 12-inch by 6-inch cinder blocks. Then you have the lid. I'm going to take the lid and I'm going to push it to one side and then do like that. And I'll push my finger right there in the middle and it just kind of popped down. Now this feels like a tin can, and that's really kind of what it is. It's pretty lightweight sheet metal aluminum. And then around the top here you have little vents. Now these vents are just allow enough smoke to come out that it flows well, but also what it does is it creates a little bit of back pressure so that way the smoke has time to work on the meat inside. If you let it wide open and the smoke just pours out, then your meat won't get quite smoky enough. But this is just the right balance of airflow. Now, the air just flows through it, so it comes through the front here and just works on its way up. So Smokehouse Products, which is the manufacturer of this, makes a full line of wood chips, and I use their wood chips all the time. But there is a few flavors they don't have, and pecan would be one and maple is another. So this is mesquite, which I, like I said, use all the time, especially on beef. And I'll pour a little bit out, and you can see that this is a relatively fine wood chip. Now, a lot of companies will call their wood chips, and they'll be a little bit bigger than that. This company's wood chunks are bigger, but they're smaller than other companies' wood chunks. But this stuff is made to work in this smoker, but it also works great in just about any other electric smoker. Some of your propane smokers, it gets a little hot and will combust too easily, so you might not want to do that. I just set this in here to get rid of it because I didn't want to put it back in the bag. I'll set this one aside, and there will be my affiliate links below in the description for a variety pack of this, and then you could try a lot of different flavors. And like I said, I use it all the time, so if you watch any of my other videos, that's the brand I'm using. Today, what I did was I bought some Cameron's smoking wood, and this is for fine, it's a fine wood. This flavor is maple, and I wanted to buy that just for the bacon. And then if you can see that, it's really fine chips. And this stuff burns really fast. I'm gonna pour that in there real quick. This stuff is perfect for one of these because with the smaller mesh, it needs a better burning, faster burning wood to go with it. Last time I used this and I used some pellets in this, and the combination of the two turned out perfect. But pellets are really just wood compressed like this. I'm gonna go ahead and fill this all the way and get it in there so that way we can get smoking. So I'm going to push the wood around to the edge. So this pan was a little bit warm because it is preheated. And then I'll go back and fill it again and make a little mountain out there. So I'm going to turn this and show you. So you can see that there's a little gap around the edges and then a mound in the middle. If you fill a whole bunch right around the edges, it won't burn and you'll just be wasting wood chips. So little mountain, gap around the edges. This will probably run about 30 minutes. Maybe a little less because the Cameron burns a little faster. We're going to go ahead and let that get smoking and then we'll come back. So that should be about 10 minutes to get that going really good. So the wood chips are burning now at full speed and the smoker is at full temperature. First thing I want to do is show you how the smoke just comes flowing out of these little vents. They're all over the lid and then there's a row of them around the side. And it just creates perfect venting. Now it's been a little breezy, so I took a few pictures in between wind gusts. If I don't see good results from here, I'll be popping those pictures up here in the corner if you can't see them on the film. So we're going to let this run. Now, in the directions for the smoked bacon, it calls for 2 to 4 hours at 200 degrees. That's going to take a lot longer with this smoker because we're running at 165. We'll need to do that full 4 hours. So I don't have any plans on pulling this before 4 hours, but I will not be hitting it with smoke the entire time. I'm going to plan on hitting it with 4 pans of wood chips, about the size that I put in there, or maybe even just a little less. That's probably at the maximum that I'd fill for something like this. I want it to absorb the smoke, but I don't want it to get bitter. So I'll come back when I have something to show you here. Hopefully it goes smoothly. For me, that'll be 4 hours. For you, that'll just be a couple seconds. See you right then. So we're ready to pull the bacon out, and I'm going to do something a little untraditional. Normally, I would tell you that you want to put the bacon in the refrigerator overnight. So I would wrap it either in foil lightly or in a butcher wrap, or usually parchment paper in my case, because I don't usually use butcher wrap. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to first take this out. I'm going to hold this up here so you can get a good look at it. Now, cutting it right now is not going to be the easiest thing in the world, but if you throw it in the fridge and let it sit for a minute, it will be a lot easier. I'd say 4 hours and it will completely cool off in the fridge and be nice and easy to cut. Also, you could run it through a meat slicer, which would give you real nice symmetrical slices of bacon. And I do recommend that you use a meat slicer for something like bacon, but I'm not going to dig one out and make a mess for this piece of bacon. So the next thing I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to plug in the frying pan. I got this thing on now and it's going ahead and warming up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slice a couple pieces here. Again, this will be easier if the bacon's cold. Now that I've sliced it, I want to bring this up here and have you take a look at this. I don't know how I'm going to try to keep it in the light right here. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but hopefully you do. If not, I'll go ahead and pop a picture right here. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the frying pan on there. And then I'm going to slice these down the middle just for convenience. I'm going to hold that up so you can get a look at that. So that is beef brisket bacon. Now it's cured and technically it's cooked, so you could eat it like that. I wouldn't eat it like that, but you can. It's not going to hurt you. Let's check out the temperature here. We'll go ahead and take a break for a second while the pan finishes heating up because I want it to sizzle when I throw it in there. The beef bacon is frying right along here. So I'm going to clear a little spot for one of the pieces, and this one looks like it's almost there. And I got to tell you, smells great. I can smell all the flavors that we used. And this one here, Gonna go ahead and take that one out. I'm just gonna slice it into a few smaller pieces. Bring it up a little bit. Hopefully you can see that real good, and let's give it a taste. It tastes like beef bacon. It does have a bit of a salty taste to it, like any bacon would have. And then also, because it is brisket, it's a little bit firmer than like pork bacon would be. Just one rib of fat through the middle there, and then on the cap. I'm going to show you this. This is what it's looking like cooked. All right, so we're cooking those in the pan, and I'm going to go ahead and put that picture up there so you can see that. And this is all done for all intents and purposes. And this will make a great sandwich topper to add along to something like a burger, or you can make it with eggs. And you know, I'm not any expert on kosher, but I just want to throw it out there since I'm saying it, that this is beef and not pork. So this is what they make for kosher bacon. And so if you don't eat pork, then this is a great alternative to give you that smoky flavor and the bacon kind of consistency. Again, it is firmer than pork. However, this is a pretty good treat, and it turned out great. This stuff is looking great here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that in the house and have myself some dinner. So thanks for watching. This is the beginning of the series for our Big Chief Smoker. If you see anything that you like in the video, including my favorite set of knives, which is Victorinox. Victorinox is the same company that makes Swiss Army knives, and these are great. I have a full set of everything from steak knives to Japanese style knife, and then, like I said, favorite slicer knife right here. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.